Well, good morning. As we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful, beautiful morning, is it Monday? No, what?
It's Wednesday,
It's
dude.
Wednesday. It doesn't matter. It is Wednesday,
Oh,
May
I'm just so
1st.
glad someone else did that besides
Yes.
me.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm always Wednesday, May 1st. I can't believe May is here, and we're welcoming it with much love. May 1st, just 2024, here with the Hello Hello Show. And my name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello Show that's been on the air since 1980. I guess not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and of course the likes of you out there that make it your business to enhance and fortify the concept of public access, um, directly, indirectly, knowingly and unknowingly, and we appreciate that, and we are fully aware of this fact. Here with us today, Bridget LeRoy. I can't begin to say. First of all, I want to say we really have actually never met
I
officially.
know, which is so crazy. We've both been out here forever.
Yes, it's unbelievable, and
Yeah.
we are. And the Let's just say that I want to open by saying that I'm humbled by the kind of energy. Again, I don't know. I'm just kind of making out my own reservations on the basis of my instincts and my ability to contemplate about a person that I know nothing about other than the written word. But the energy, the composition, the emotional composure, of course, heritage is a factor in our lives, whether it's of this kind or that kind, and I guess the incredible amount of expectation from a person that is so engaged, and also with we're going to talk about Matt Reiner and your involvement in his life, which is the extent of that in itself is a 1 hour topic here.
Well, I just have to say, no one has ever referred to me as emotionally composed.
Composed.
So thank you, Haim.
Oh yes, well, and this is because I don't want to go further and say so, but because it's a reflection of how I feel about myself, and I see so many similarities, and that makes me feel like I'm in good company and safe in within that immediate vicinity of yours. So
Thank
allow
you.
me to enter your immediate vicinity and ask you about you, as if no one knows anything about who Bridget is.
Oh, please. I'm excited to talk about myself. No, I did want to offer up that I turned 60 in October, and just every decade gets better, and I feel more grounded in myself, more comfortable. All of the things that I definitely feel better at 60 than I did at 30 about myself, about my environment, about other people. There's just so much less drama and so much more love. So I appreciate you saying that. I feel
But
very
compared to me, you're a baby. You know
stop
that.
it.
I'm older than you.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have a
So I
like
can relate.
the line in the sand has been drawn because now I meet people. I'm like, you're 75. I mean, that's so young, and I used to think like that was like practically dead. So it's the opinions change as I get up
Yes,
there
and
in
I think
age.
it's a direct reflection of who you are as an individual, as a person, and because probably you're very much like me, that emotionally you have issues with self confidence, or I carried a sense of inferiority forever when I had no reason, none whatsoever.
Oh, I
But
did. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
yeah,
interrupt.
and then but then I had to find ways. I had to reinvent myself in order to get rid of this feeling.
Yeah, and I feel very strongly that I just it's about dissolution of the ego, isn't it? It's all about dissolution of the ego, and ego's not a bad thing, obviously. I mean, when I say ego, I don't mean arrogance. I mean
Yeah,
ego being the thing that keeps us fed or keeps us, in the front of the line, so we can get food and we can get our needs met. But my needs are all met right now.
yeah,
I'm very, very blessed. My needs, not all my wants, but all my needs are being met.
yes.
So I'm able to kind of let the ego go a little bit. And I find with that a lot of the the self deprecation and the being unsure of myself, it's all gone
Yeah, it's
a
all about the
lot.
skeleton and uh, the composition that goes along with uh, reminding yourself that actually this is a great point of reference. So when you kind of turn your head and you say, "Is that actually I'm pretty stable?
Yeah.
So why do I feel like I'm so shaky?
Yeah.
So kind of wobbly?" And then you say, well, actually, maybe I shouldn't ask this question, just welcome it because it's just a part of the equation and then take it from there.
Yeah, yeah.
But it takes, look how simple it is between us that we're describing it, but it takes years
Yeah, it
to
does.
anchor that resolution, that conviction.
Yeah, yeah. And
Uh,
my youngest child, who's 24 and about to become a father, he said to me about a month ago that he's learning that the secret to life is putting white space, like putting buffers between his appointments. And I was like, oh my God, if you learn that now, because I didn't know that until I was in my 50s. You know, I was just running, running, running all the time. And I was always depleted. I wasn't behind. I never missed a deadline or anything like that. But in my mind, I was always like, I was never in the present moment. I was in the past or in the future. And that's not a way to be. Now I feel very grounded. I feel like I've put a lot of white space in my calendar, and when I overcommit, I immediately feel it. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, something has to go. Like something has to go,
but it
and
felt right,
that's
even
yeah.
when that which we realized that was wrong, it felt right when actually it took place.
Yeah, I just have to
So,
trust my gut now, and that sometimes
yes.
every once in a while something has to just fall off the plate.
Oh, yes.
You
And
know.
you know what? As an artist myself, I started very late and there was no evolutionary process. And the reason why I'm mentioning it in relationship to what you just said now is that I had to, in order, and I said, oh my God, to become an artist out of nowhere. Yeah, I write poetry. Yeah, I play music, but I don't paint paintings. So in this community, to dare to declare that I'm an artist when no one even know any details about that, it felt like a little too much. I'm kind of opening myself to be
But you are an artist.
crucified.
But you are. You're an
Yes, but
artist. You're
then,
doing it. It's happening.
but you know, I made it possible because I introduced factors that I established with other mediums in my life,
Mm.
and they're called EDFs, the energy draining factors. So I identify them, I isolate them by groups, and I just it was down to perfection with my ability to just do away with it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started with the with art, I said, you know what, I'm going to introduce my efficiency, my work ethics, long before I think about subject matters or
Mm-hmm.
holding a brush or thinking, oh, the intimidating white canvas, which thanks to that was never an issue in my life. You know, I bypassed the time that all the artists are staring in the canvas for a week and doing nothing.
Yeah.
Never happened to me.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
That's amazing. So you
I
just
save
jumped right
so
in,
much.
huh?
I don't even jump right into it. I'm just like there all the time. Even when I leave, I know when I come back, I'm not going to listen to music or smoke cigarettes, or even though it's okay, but I'm going to be painting.
Right.
And that's why, and the
Well,
brushes are going to be there. And I'm
that's
going to turn around and
amazing.
say, where are the brushes? Oh, I don't have enough paint. It's all there. As almost borderline pathetic as it sounds, it just did the work for me.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I kind of, I guess I'm going through something like that, not going through it, but approaching something, which is Lynn Blumenfeld and I are going to be running a writing workshop at Longhouse in August. The dates aren't quite set or anything, but it's been okayed, and I'm very excited about it. I've never run a writing workshop before. I've run women's retreats. I, of course, have been writing for over 4 decades. It's not like, new to me, but I've never really taught it before. And I wouldn't say that I have like imposter syndrome, but it is going to be something. It's a new hill to climb, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I understand what you're saying about approaching new things and getting rid of, what do you call them, energy draining factors.
EDFs.
Oh my God, I love that.
You can use it. I allow you to
EDFs.
adapt.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great. So absolutely. And that's, and part of that is making those buffers in my life so that I have time to take a breath and ground myself and feel, what the next thing is. Feel where the contractions are in my body, in my brain. What do I need to jettison? What do I need to hold on to? And it sounds like we're on very similar pathways like that.
Yeah, yes, and but then again, you wonder also on top of that, how come this is a mystery to others? How come it's they're innocent of that necessity to know that?
Well, I think a lot of people do it, but they may not put it into words the way you and I do. They do it naturally. It didn't come naturally to you or I. It sounds like we had to decide to do this. And I think that for some people it comes naturally. They just know how take on just enough stuff and they know how to, and they feel good at what they do. And, they don't have those moments.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do. And I think also the thing is, Haim, I think that a lot of people are very comfortable being stuck in their story. And if the story is that they can't
But
do
like
something, it's
creating their
more
own safety
comfortable.
zone.
Yeah, it's more comfortable to say I can't do it because than to say I can do it because, right?
Yeah.
Because then you have expectations,
Yeah.
and so I think that I'm hearing that a lot of people get stuck in their own narrative. I have a friend, a wonderful, wonderful friend in England who had a tragedy happen to her, like I'm going to say like over 20 years ago. And she still leads with that. When she meets someone, she brings up this tragedy. That's what she leads with. Now she's had this incredible career. She has published things. She's an artist, all of that stuff. But when she meets someone in the first 5 minutes, she's going to tell them about this terrible thing that happened. So she's still kind of stuck there.
But maybe it's her way of putting it aside by just externalizing it and getting it over with,
or
because she knows herself well enough to realize this necessity, this importance, and then
possibly
if she can ignore it altogether after she says it.
Yeah, but I'm not so sure. I think that it might be that the only time she really got attention that she craved was by being the victim. Maybe that's the first time that people really, really paid attention to her. And that is a very heady thing. Attention. That's the strongest drug there is. Attention, affection, and approval. And if that's when she got it, then that's what she's going to lead with as her way of saying, here, like me, because I had this horrible thing happen.
But you know what? Because, this is an extension of my involvement with Kabbalah. The Kabbalah will tell you that actually you're right, but maybe indirectly, the opposite of it is absolutely correct and right.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need an excuse to support that, because it's parallel lives, parallel realities, and all that. So, because they're very crucial about not judging certain scenarios, because to begin with, they tell you never trust your senses. This is the first thing that actually they teach you in Kabbalah. Never trust your senses. But then they go ahead and tell you how much you need to rely on your senses.
Right.
But how can you rely on senses that you cannot trust? That's why it's called Kabbalah.
This is a lot of mysticism for early in the morning. I've only had one cup of coffee, for God's sake.
I should have brought a cup of coffee.
It's okay. I probably don't need more. I've got my water. But it's a lot of philosophy.
So the point is, for example, like I always thought about, I wish someone was in my life to whisper something in my ear early on when I started to paint paintings, and to tell me, it's a little bit to the left. Stay here a little longer. Don't dwell too much. Just pointers like this would have saved me so much energy, so many shortcuts that are just crucial.
Yeah.
So what happens is instinctively I offer that to people. Like, for example, there's an artist that I really love, and he did something on Facebook, all this. So he opened himself after the crowd. So what? Am I going to deny myself to tell him what I think about things?
Mm-hmm.
So I called him and I said, I love you. I respect your work. And because of that, I want to give you a present. I want to give you a gift. He said, what? I said, do you have a minute? He said, yes. And I went to tell him what I think he should do. Instead of telling him what I think he should not do, I told him that vis-a-vis what I think he should do. And
how did he take that?
Speaking of ego, so ego kicks in,
right?
And I hear his heart beating irregularly vis-a-vis the conversation.
Yes.
And I said, "What, did I ruin our friendship? No, what?" But I said, "Listen, you need to cut through the BS here. Just do away with it. It just spare yourself from this pain, because there's enough pain to last you for a lifetime. Why add more? Look into the many people. For example, there was a great artist that showed in East Hampton not too long ago, and I don't know him from Jesus, and he talks about his art, and he's just so willing to describe what his art is all about. And I just wanted to scream, enough, man. So I came to him and I said, I must tell you that your art is exquisitely beautiful as a background to the art that you haven't created yet. And he said, no one ever talked to me like that. So I said, is it good or bad? He said, I don't know. I need to digest it.
Yeah.
But I thought I gave him a great pointer. I thought I gave him something that he can work on for the next 10 years.
Right.
But that's me.
Right.
So how do we measure that it's actually supposed to be a contribution as opposed to a deterring factor in the desire to communicate with people and give them something?
That's a very good question. I mean, my entire career has been as an interviewer, as someone who listens to other people. I certainly interrupt a lot. I certainly have my own opinions, but I think of myself as being a funnel or a filter, or a polishing cloth. So people give me their stories, and it's my job to shine them up and make them digestible or make them pretty for other people to enjoy. I'm just a conduit. I see myself as being. My name is Bridget, which is bridge. People call me
Also,
Bridge. I think of myself as I'm a bridge.
Yes.
I'm just a bridge. And that's, that I try to keep it in the, try to keep the humility of just being a bridge, or a conduit for stories. And they just, they go into my brain, they come out through my fingers.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what that's what I've made a career doing.
That's a very interesting way to describe it.
Yeah. Well,
Which finger?
Well, it's really funny. I mean, because obviously when I've interviewed people like Jane Fonda or the Clintons or, Whoopi Goldberg or Steven Spielberg or all the people that I've interviewed, I can get very, very nervous. And I learned, I mean, pretty late, because I've been doing this since I was in my 20s, but I learned that really all you have to do is say, so how are you today? Yes. Basically, and they talk for 45 minutes. Oh, I don't have to they like me to send questions ahead of time so they have an idea of where the interview is going to go. Like I'm interviewing Patti LuPone in a couple of weeks. But now I know it's the first time in my life in the last couple of years that I'm not really nervous, because I know I can just say something like, so what are you working on lately? Yeah. And people love to, people appreciate, I don't want to say like, oh, I don't mean that they love to talk about themselves. People appreciate being asked. Yes. And all I do is listen.
Yes. But I like to, for example, it's interesting you should mention it. I'll probably adapt your attitude, but not before I puzzle them with complexity.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the ability to do that, especially with people that don't trust me. Most people that I interview really don't know me. Mm-hmm. We never met, like here. Mm-hmm. So there is, whether you believe it or not, there's an inner unexplainable desire on behalf of people for you to fail. Not that they're really mean people. It comes because this is the nature of the nature of the beast.
It's really funny. I have there's a Hindu word, mudita, and it means feeling vicarious joy, and that's me. I don't even click on things that seem like, like bad things. But mudita, I feel vicarious joy through my friends' successes. And that's a choice. I mean, I think you're right. I think the human nature is to rubberneck or to watch the accident or to see the person who's unhappy. I changed that dynamic in my life. I do not feel that.
If someone, I cannot handle it.
I cannot handle it, and exactly. So I really try to bless my friends with love. That's really how I feel. That's like, really, I mean, I'm 60, as I've already said. My dad died when he was 65. This might be my last 5 years.
Yes.
How do I want to spend it? I don't want to spend it looking at the car accident. I want to spend it, supporting my friends, which probably brings us to Matt Rayner.
Of course. That will, the extension of it will be like, because you want to, maybe, I don't know, for lack of a better word, to teach them a lesson that is your own private observation of what interaction is all about. And you want to humble them that you can actually turn the situation to a point where they wouldn't know where they are physically, even. Like suddenly they would have to look right and left and say, wait a second, where am I? Almost like dementia, momentarily dementia. And then they look at you and they say, okay, maybe this guy is a little mightier than I thought, so I should behave here. So you want to bring them down and say, I'm here to communicate with you. I'm here to expose all the beautiful sides that you have to offer to this world, and your skills and your thought pattern and all this. So work with me here. Otherwise, I'm going to send you back home in pieces.
Well, I think it's amazing that you have that, those kind of opinions that you feel so strongly need to be expressed, and that they're probably very, very good. I just don't feel that way about my opinion. I don't care about anything enough to offer my opinion, unless it's like my
But
family.
you do without knowing that you're actually doing it, because if you have the duration, if you complete the duration, that includes that which you just suggested that does not exist.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, it's a given and all this, but exactly as you mentioned, let's go to Matt.
Okay.
Also another person, another artist that we're going to show his work, and we're going to give all the information, of course, and I'm going to let you describe in details things that I'm not aware of and cannot really offer to the public. But also a person that I don't know, I heard of him, and I'm just feeling. I felt this humility, a sense of a huge void that took over me, and then quickly enough was replaced with meaning, with substance. That's why I felt like, okay, if it's up to me, then yes, we want him here. We want this individual that lost his everything that he has going
Yes,
on for him in ways that are just like mind-boggling, and that he has so much to offer, because art is the healing factor,
it
the
is.
the point of reference, the condition for engagement, all that, and probably his head is still working,
Oh yeah.
so he has a world that
Yeah, I
we
mean,
might not even be aware of.
I feel a little weird, obviously, being the one to speak on behalf of Matt Rayner, who is, completely capable of speaking for himself. But I happen to be here today,
Yes, 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 of course.
and I'm helping to bring his work to you. Thank you so much for giving him this platform. For people who don't know, just a little background. So Matt Rayner he's in his early 30s. 5 years ago, this 2 weeks ago was his anniversary. 5 years ago, he's a successful commercial fisherman, Hampton Bays guy, Bayman, and he was jumping into the water off of Toud Point and hit his neck on, and this is water that he's extremely familiar with. It was a windy day. He hit the sand at the bottom and he crushed several of his vertebrae and was floating. Anyway, but what's really interesting is he had been diving all day by himself, and just before sunset or whatever, late in the day, he decided to go and pick up his friend Jerome Lucani, who's also an artist. And so he wasn't alone, and he started floating out to sea. He literally drowned. Jerome pulled him out, performed CPR, but Matt is paralyzed. He's a quadriplegic, paralyzed from I think he likes to say, like, his nipples down or something. He has limited use of his hands and his arms. And he now he's lost everything basically, but he did pick up a drone and went back to photography. He had loved photography when he was out on the boat, when he was doing commercial fishing, and some of his work reflects that. And then after the accident, his work is very um, ethereal. It's airy. It's all the things he can't be, being so tied to his bed or his wheelchair. But through his photography, especially his drone photography, he shows things from above in a way that he likes to relate, I think, to his NDE, to his near-death experience.
Yeah.
But he's an amazing artist, and he also has a few mixed media pieces he's been experimenting with. Right now, he's not able to create because he's at the Hampton Center, for Rehabilitation and Nursing. He's kind of unhoused and is living there. He has no money at all, and but his art is amazing, and he's incredible, and he'll be here, on Friday, May 10th for the opening reception. He needed to have some work done. He does have a handicapped van, but he wasn't able to use it, and he's of course not able to get around or do anything for himself. He's not able to feed himself or do any toileting or showering or dressing or anything like that, or driving, of course. So he does need kind of constant care. But I'm sure you'll interview him as well. He is a wonderful person with a wicked sense of humor.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
of the reasons why I love him like a son.
Yes, I love
So
it,
he's a terrific guy.
and I love it very much that you love him so much.
Yeah.
That's something
Well,
that
a lot of
brings
people do. The good thing is
bring.
that he does have a lot of people who
Uh,
love him and reach out to him. And but
I hope that you are proud of yourself accordingly, as you should be. Um, but I think that this is also the concept of public access. Believe it or not, I've done over 5,500 shows here.
That's
Okay,
amazing,
it's like
Haim. Oh
it's
my
like
gosh.
between Fraser and I, we got 10,000 tapes. Tapes. I call it tapes. I'm so ancient.
Oh, dear Fraser.
But
I
yeah,
love Fraser.
I know.
For Fraser's 80th birthday, we were living up in New Hampshire and I sent him a pogo stick
Oh
for his
yeah.
birthday.
Oh my God.
And he loved it. I loved Fraser and Francis Ann. I love,
Yeah.
yeah.
He was, I, I'm proud to tell you that I have all of his silkscreen collection.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yes, 120 of them.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
he came to me in, I think it was about 25 years ago, and he said when he still had the house on Drew Lane, or was it
Yeah.
on the
Drew
ocean,
Lane. Yeah.
and he
On
said
the ocean.
the parish wants my silk screens, but I'd rather give it to you. Would you like it? I said, why would you want to give it to me? He said, don't ask questions. Do you want it or not? I said, but I know you, Fraser. You're gonna give it to me, and then you're gonna start hassling me every day. Where is it? Is it in good shape? Where are you keeping it? Where are you storing it?
Oh my
And then you would
God.
want it back. If I take it, I keep it because I know him. I know him very
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
He said, okay, and then and I still have it, and I'm still contemplating how to go about it. To make the prints, to show his work. And he has the images of his travels all over the world,
Oh,
sailing,
wonderful.
and all
Yeah,
of that.
Fraser was a dear, dear friend.
Yeah.
And for my husband was like almost like a godfather. I mean,
Yes.
my husband knew him from when he was tiny.
Yeah.
Eric, he grew up out here.
Yeah.
And he, loved
He's
Fraser.
the one that welcomed me, in 1986 when I first stepped into the old facility and all this. But going to show you, 5,500 shows, and it's still going, and all of that. There's the concept of public access has so much to do with realizing, if there's anything in the world I hate, is something which is cliche, unless it's a part of my poetry, it has no room in my life.
Right.
Yeah, unless it supports some image or some, description of a feeling or something. But when I heard of Matt, it was just like, oh my God! I mean, this is an entity that wants to invite people like this.
Yeah.
Because it's so natural. This concept is so natural in encouraging, in inspiring, in reinstating the obvious,
And it
emphasizing the obvious, and because you're part of public access.
Yes,
also.
yeah, we'll talk about our show as well. But the thing about Matt also is that, I mean, he obviously, like all of us, has good days and bad days. But when he has a good day, he's so full of gratitude that he's alive, and it's a beautiful thing to witness, to see that in someone that has had the worst possible thing happen and still be alive, and yet he still has hope, and he still is creating art, and always looking for a way to be useful to society, which is incredible. He's an amazing man, and I'm just glad to know him.
Yes, great. I'm looking forward to meeting with him, and again. LTV is definitely proud to have a person like this here, and we're continuing with our own tradition of 26 years of showing group artists and whatnot. So, shifting just a little bit into your engagement with LTV, and the extension of who you are as a person, as a personality. And it's like I have a feeling that it really supports your demeanor. if I can, and so tell me a little bit about that unique experience that you have with public access.
Well, I was lucky enough to host I have a long love affair with radio, and had a show up in New Hampshire, Culture Queen. I had a show back here before I moved up to New Hampshire, and before in the 1990s, a Friday afternoon show where I would talk about art and stuff like that. I think it was called Culture Queen. And then I went up and did that up in New Hampshire. So when I came back, I still wanted to do something like that. So for 3 years, I had a show on, back when it was still WPPB, 88.3 FM, our national public radio, our local NPR station. And I had a show called Sundays on the East End with my good friend from high school, even Alex Sokolow, who went on to write Toy Story. He was an Academy Award nominee, but he was my prom date. So we hosted that show for 3 years. And then, the pandemic, whatever, and we both got busy, and the show, we dropped the show. And then I had this idea and wanted to do something that was multimedia. So to do a show that both airs on WLIW-FM, which is what took over PPB. It's our local NPR station, kind of like public access, and to do something in conjunction with LTV. So that's what we have now. We have this show called Air Hamptons with Bridget and Bill, my co-host Bill McCuddy, hilarious, wonderful comedian, was a host on Fox with America's Talking. He's had several shows, and which just goes to show how little I know about Bill, because I'm kind of like he's great. We have great rapport together, but we don't really know that much about each other's lives. We're not like besties or anything like that, but we do have a really great rapport, and he's an amazing co-host, and we do Air Hamptons with Bridget and Bill. So what happens is we have several guests. We have Jim Turner as our one-man band. You're going to be our guest today, one of our guests.
Jim Turner and I, we know each other for many years.
Yeah, everybody knows Jim.
Yes.
That's what we should call the show. Everybody knows Jim. And we try to keep it kind of light and funny. We do interviews. We have some music. We do some special, what's going on. And we do it only once a month, but we have the first Sunday of the month. It drops first on WLIW-FM at 11 a.m. So, like the May, our Mayflowers episode drops this Sunday. What is this Sunday? May 5th at 11 a.m. on WLIW-FM 88.3. And then it goes on LTV for the whole month. So it's both TV and radio.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah. So that's what we do. And then we, the one we're taping today, is actually our June episode. We're taping on May 1st. So, that's a little secret. That one everybody knows.
Keep it this way?
Yeah. And then on June 5th, I believe we tape our July episode. But anyway, so we do that, and it's wonderful to have these multi-platforms, and I love public access. I mean, it's great. But we have to kind of temper what we say. Like there's certain things you can say on public access, like the F-bomb and stuff that we cannot say on the radio. And the other thing is, on the radio we could play music, but we can't play it on LTV because they don't have the rights, but the radio does. So it's interesting. It's a really interesting, I'm learning all the time. It's an interesting line to walk.
It's funny that you say the F word and all this. Whenever my guest says an F word, I say I got to get up and punch you in the face. Sorry.
No, we had a whole episode this summer of another show we do called Weekend Live in the Hamptons, and we were able to, we dropped the F-bomb like 25 times because it wasn't on the radio. God. It was fun.
So I want to shift a little bit also to the left or to the right. I don't know which is proper the direction, but as far as it's like when I read about your heritage, I told you the story about Trudy Golden, who was married to Herb Golden, the vice president of Columbia Pictures, in the old days and all this. And it was the days in 1983, 84, that the film festival was out of Guildhall, and everything was filtered through Trudy Golden's house because she was the one who was running it. Right. So Herb used to supply to us the 35 millimeter projector, the 16 millimeter projector, unheard of. Right. The beta tapes and all that. So I learned a thing or two when it came to that, but I think that the equivalent of your heritage is almost like an avalanche of goodness, but still an avalanche, because I always claim that even if it's an avalanche of goodness, it will bury you alive. It doesn't matter what is the nature of the avalanche. An avalanche is an avalanche. You got to be very careful. That's why they came with the saying, be careful what you wish for. Right. You want to wish to win the lottery, and then you win $500 million, and then you're dead 2 seconds later because you had a stroke and a heart attack. Right. At the same token. The relevance between that avalanche of goodness relating to your heritage and your personal composure, like saying, I'm sure it's instinctive by nature how you digest all that, or how you are able to sort through. Your great-grandfather, your grandfather, your father, your mother, your stepfather. Yeah. You're talking about shattering.
I am it's 6 degrees of Bridget LeRoy all the way. I know.
I really need you to clarify what's going on.
It's funny, actually, on our show, on Air Hamptons, we have a name drop jar instead of a swear jar. Because every time, because everyone says, I'm like, oh yeah, he was my neighbor. Oh yeah, like, whatever. So yeah, so for those, the two people who don't know, oh my God. So yeah, so my great grandfather was Harry Warner, who started Warner Brothers Pictures. The Warner Brothers were my great uncles. My grandfather, Mervyn LeRoy, produced and directed over 80 Hollywood films, including The Wizard of Oz.
That's insane.
My father, Warner LeRoy, was the restaurateur responsible for Maxwell's Plum, Tavern on the Green, and the Russian Tea Room. Plus, he also started Great Adventure theme park. And let me tell you what it's like to be a very awkward, overweight, chubby, bespeckled little girl, but be able to invite your friends to your own amusement park. It's pretty cool. And my mom, amazing playwright and screenwriter, and has written over 20 books.
Children's books?
Yeah, children's books, but she
That's very
also
important.
was the co-author with Anna Pump of the Loaves and Fishes cookbooks. And yeah, my mom is amazing. She's still with us. She's around. And then my stepfather, Tony Walton, just passed a couple of years ago, and he of course was an Oscar winner and Tony winner for sets and costume design, and was also a wonderful theater director.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Emma Walton Hamilton is my stepsister.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Yeah, Steve Hamilton, who's directing The Pillow Man right next door in the room next door, is my brother-in-law.
Yeah,
and
wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful.
so it's been. I mean, for the most part, my childhood was really magical. I grew up on stage sets and movie sets, not because of the Warner Brothers, but because of Tony, my stepdad. And we would travel. I'd get home from school. I remember getting home from school once when I was like in third grade, just starting third grade. And my mom was like, pack your bags. We're moving to England for a year, because Tony was doing Murder on the Orient Express with Sidney Lumet. And
love it. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we just moved around. We went over to England. We'd come home, and my mom would homeschool me, or I would get enrolled in some school in England for a few months, and it was wonderful. But I mean, there's nothing like doing your homework in a little like a little mushroom on the set of The Boyfriend. Ken Russell's The Boyfriend. Tony did the sets for, and it was the dream sequence of All I Want Is a Room in Bloomsbury, where they go into like this little fairyland with little mushroom houses. And I was like sitting there reading a book or something, and Tommy Toon in full elf costume, all 6'6", or as he would say, all 5'18" of him, would peek in and go, "Hey, little girl, what you up to?" And just having
that 5'18".
Yeah, and all those people, or being Emma reminded me recently when Annie Reinking passed a few years ago, that we went to see the show Chicago that Tony designed the sets for, and Annie Reinking had taken over for Gwen Verdon and Cheetah Rivera, and was in the play. And during the second act, we sat down after the intermission, and the lights went down. They never came back up. It was July 13th, 1977. It was the day of the New York blackout. And suddenly Emma and I, 14 years old, were in this dark theater where no lights were coming on. And Emma grabbed my hand. She's like, "Let's go backstage." And Anne Reinking took me and Emma under her wing and walked us all the way back to our parents' apartment 40 blocks away.
Amazing.
So, just like I have these amazing, it's not like I wasn't on the outskirts. I was like there. And when I talk about my dad living in the Dakota, John Lennon was our next door neighbor. It's not like, oh, I mean, I knew him. Yeah. It's not like, I mean, he was there. He was in my kitchen. I'd come, I'd go over and visit. He and my stepmom, who also is still with us, by the way, very much still with us. My stepmom and John both were from kind of, underserved British families, and they had that in common. So they were very, very close.
But speaking of name dropping, I can name drop names that nobody knows anything about. Plenty of them, including my father too, right. Which those who knew him knew enough. But I want to actually elaborate more and try to get this kind of feeling from you. If you can try to hold your breath as you're humming into the realization of that level of anxiety accompanying that kind of a lifestyle, that kind of description that you gave us. Can you try and share that kind of feeling with us, if it exists at all?
It's interesting you should say that, because I often think that I just came off the assembly line defective. Something was, I came off missing some core part that I spent a lot of my time trying to fill up with
And that was
inappropriate.
due to what was it due to?
I don't know.
Just
Just luck, just, God deciding or whatever that, I just came off the assembly line, just a little broken, I think without a core. And so I really spent a lot of my time trying to fill that core very early on with things like food. That was an early one, or escape into books or little fantasy worlds that I created, and then eventually drugs and alcohol. Um, just anything to sort of make myself feel like I was okay. And yeah, and there was a lot of anxiety, but it was really early on. I mean, I was just scared of the dark. I was scared. I was just a frightened child.
you're describing basic things that really is the reality of many
Sure,
people out
of
there.
course.
But what was wrong that needed to be right to become right, but needed to be fixed? Is that something that took a lifetime to realize?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say actually I've learned more in the last 3 or 4 years about trauma, which I thought trauma meant, you were raped or you were abused or you were hit every day. I didn't know that trauma could be just very, very simple things, just moments that lodge in your. If you've read "The Body Keeps the Score" by
Mm,
Bessel van der Kolk, there's just these contractions that
yeah,
that where something seizes up and becomes a blockage and can become a disease in your
I
body.
know it firsthand. I
Right.
know so well what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's not anybody's fault. It's not like it's not that I was abused or anything. I had a pretty magical childhood when it comes to childhoods, I would not change mine with anybody. Um, but I think that I was skipped several grades. So when I was 10, I was in seventh grade. Now I know you have 5 children, so digest that for a second. Think of being 10 years old in seventh grade. And I was at the United Nations school where, in seventh grade, a lot of the boys already had mustaches and stuff.
Yes, I love it.
And I had, I was small for my age anyway, and, clearly very bright, or I wouldn't have been, skipped. But it was, and I was in New York in the 1970s, and it was scary and dirty and, and I was little and I was,
Yes,
and I was frightened,
yes.
and for nobody's fault. But that was, so it was this kind of,
Lacking the shelter, the emotional shelter, or the sturdy stage
I,
to stand and feel like you're
yeah,
guarded.
I don't think I was really lacking anything. I came from a very loving background, and very supportive. My parents were. I was an only child, even though I have steps and halves and whatever. I was my mother's only
But
child,
there
and we
must
were.
have been openings where things just seeped through and
Yeah.
found that kind of vulnerability and shakiness, and therefore caused that.
Yeah, I mean, there were just like dumb things. I mean, I can't even believe I'm thinking about this, but because I knew like Ron Delsner, we all know Ron obviously
Mhm.
now, but my first day in a new school, there were some kids and they went, "Hey, can you get us tickets to so and so concert?" Because they knew I knew,
Yeah.
and I got tickets for all of us. I thought they were inviting me, and then they said, "Oh no, we don't want you to come with us.
Oh my
We're not
God.
interested in you
Yeah.
coming with us."
Yeah.
And they took the tickets,
Oh.
and those kind of things. But I mean,
Yes.
but
Yes.
everybody has stories like that. I mean, it's not like I was just
Yes.
so shocked. But I could go home and my mom would be like, "Ah, they're
Yeah.
a-holes, have a piece of
Yeah. And
lasagna,
you know what?
you
Because
know."
you're so generous with me with your openness, I'll tell you a shorty. My first ever attempt to create art was when I was like 9 years old, and I took a hammer and a screwdriver with a piece of wood, and I was carving. And my father was going in and out of the house, and he kind of noticed me, which was a big deal that he noticed me. Anyway, he wasn't a bad dad, by the way.
Right.
But then at some point he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know. I'm trying to kind of carve this shape of a face and all this." And and at some point he said, I, I think you should let it go.
Hmm.
Like, whatever it is that he said. And 40 years later, when I'm standing in East Hampton and I'm feeling like I'm just about to cry uncontrollably, not knowing where it's coming from,
Hmm.
like literally. And I got scared a little bit. And then I realized I took a deep breath And because I took voice lessons once, my voice teacher said, "You're better off humming than singing," which was a great revelation. So I hum. I hum into my request to understand what's happening to
So
me.
you created a sound vibration to release a
Yes,
blockage in your
and
body,
then
basically
also
a
a
trauma.
heat buffer, like a halo
Mm-hmm.
that makes me feel like I can go out of myself and still be safe, not vulnerable. Because I wanted to go out myself and come back to myself. Didn't want to lose myself. It's very dangerous to do that this way.
Can I'll offer just one thing
Yes.
about my father that I've never told anyone because I don't want it to land wrong, but I think that what your father said when you better leave that while you were trying to create, he probably thought he was protecting you from a life of being a starving artist, or something like that. Because I think my dad did the same thing. I mean, I really have never told this story to anyone outside the family because I love my dad. My dad was an amazing dad. But when I started, co-founded the East Hampton Independent, and then 8 or 9 years later, when I released my shares and I moved to New Hampshire, he said the exact same thing to me when I said I was going to start a paper and when I told him I was getting out of the paper. He said, "You're a fool." And I think that and my father was extremely supportive of what I did, but I think he was trying to protect me because who the hell starts a newspaper at 20, in the Hamptons, which has some of the best newspapers in the world anyway. But we did. We started the paper
And
and
he did very well.
we did very well.
But
And
maybe
then,
he
so
didn't
we did
know.
well enough that 9 years later, when I sold my shares back to Jim Mackin and Lee Minitry and Jerry Delafina,
Yeah.
he was like, "You're a fool to get out of it."
Yeah.
Oh
my God. Now it's
So
the
I was like,
opposite.
"Make up your mind, Dad."
Yeah.
That's what she said when I started. But I think that's a parent, I have children, you have children. I say things that I don't mean to come out that way,
Yes.
and then years later I hear about it and I'm like, "Oh my God, that is not what I meant
But
when
I
I
can
said
offer
it."
back to you
Yeah,
the same. Maybe they didn't know better. My father,
exactly.
and they're bright people, and you would say, well, how come they don't know better? It's such a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But maybe he didn't know better.
He didn't know better.
He
He was
didn't
trying to
know
protect
better
me.
because he lacked the very basic aspects of what being dad all about because of the era.
Yeah.
Nowadays, maybe I hate hearing myself say that I'm like 100 times better dad than you would ever be, but he was still nevertheless a good dad because the impressions he left in those isolated moments that he was really a great dad remain forever.
Oh yeah.
But that day that I just about to, I wasn't afraid to cry. I was afraid to fall apart.
Okay.
It felt like this big thing coming over me,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to find out because I said maybe because it just felt bigger than me. But I started humming and it just took me to that day. And I said,
Amazing.
"Oh my God, this is." I would have never. I remembered it, but I would have never thought that this would be an issue so deep. This actually destabilizing me out of nowhere and all this. But once I contained it, and I said, "Okay, okay, okay. You know what? I have the ability to put it aside because I can relate to it later. Many people
Yeah.
cannot do it. They either
Right.
deal with it or it goes away forever, kind of thing, and then they have to deal with the repercussions. These deposits are not dissipating, and they will remain to hurt you." So
They
I
will. They'll
managed to
turn
put it
into
aside.
disease a lot of times,
Exactly.
right?
And then I managed to attend to it now and then. We have about 10 more minutes,
Okay. I was
Amir.
just checking on the time.
And um, and then in my own time, multiple sessions needed to, because I knew it was in a place where I could reach it, where I can see it and all that.
Well, that's such a
But
gift, though, Haim, that you have that because I think a lot of people don't. And I did want to mention you talked, we're talking about anxiety, which I kind of filled with this. I filled my empty hole with drugs and alcohol for a long time. And when I got clean and sober, the doctor prescribed a benzodiazepine to me. And no one told me that you're only supposed to take them for 10 days. My doctors prescribed them for 24 years. 24 years I took a benzodiazepine. I'm very open about it because it wasn't an addiction.
that's
Um,
almost impossible to get rid of that habit.
yeah. So what happened was in November of 2022, I went off of them on my own and I almost died. I had a
Yeah.
neurological event. Part of my brain died up here. I've had brain scans, MRIs, everything. And I had to find a workaround. So and they updosed me. They put me back on the benzodiazepines. And then I very, very, very slowly tapered
Oh
off
yeah. Oh
according to
yeah.
the Ashton manual. I would just like to say this because, There are a lot of people out there who, and the point is also, my anxiety was worse after 24 years of being on this medication, which I only took as prescribed. And there's actually a movie now called As Prescribed about benzodiazepines and how bad they are for your central nervous system. So I am now a year off of the benzodiazepine, which again, only took as prescribed, took once a day. Like I took my probiotic in the morning, I took my pill at night to help me sleep, but it didn't help me sleep. So my point is that I am less anxious now that I have no medication in my body than I was when I was taking what was prescribed for me. And I just wanted to put that out there because I write about this on my Substack, All Tabs Open, which is what they said my brain was like. I had all tabs open all the time, and I feel so much better now that I'm not on what was supposed to make me less anxious.
Yes, and
I
I
was more
think I
anxious.
thank you for sharing that with us. That's like that's very very important, and that was very eloquently described and portrayed. Um, but again, going back to art, because that's the
Yes.
reason of why we're here, and Matt
Yes.
and all these wonderful things that are going to be coming. I'm looking forward to going to his studio today together with you,
Yes.
and to meet with him and all this. But again, I sit here for 5,500 shows, and I always speak of the extension of art. I speak all the way from the horror days of Auschwitz to the glamorous day of celebration of freedom around the world, and the relevance of that importance. I speak about how art humbles evil, how evil cannot stand in the face of that strength called art and the artistic process and all that, and how we should treasure it. And I go through all that which is adamant and obvious and cliche in order to emphasize and enhance this concept in my life. And you know what? And I care just as much as I don't care, and I don't care just as much as I care. And I'm always in motion, and I'm always in that motion of simplicity covered with complexity and sophistication,
Mm.
because it's inevitable. I don't offer sophistication out of sophistication. I don't create abstract out of abstract. I always go from that simple base in order for that sophistication to erupt, in order for that abstract to come to life. And then the that which I fear the most, which is the obviousness of it, is disappearing for good, and then it offers longevity to the process.
Mm.
That's what I believe. Public access is a pure extension of it.
Yeah.
So my blessing is that I bless that entity that shines that aspect in my heart and in my mind, and it makes me a better artist, makes me a better person, makes me a better thinker, and on and on
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and communicator, of course, which is something that you yourself also is a part of your life.
Well, going through this whole benzo hell
That
that I
was a
went
long
through.
one
No, it's beautiful.
first
Beautiful.
sentence.
I love how you put that, and it inspires me to share that, going through this whole kind of benzo hell that I was going through last year, the only thing I could do was write about it. I needed to express it through my art, which is the written word. And that's how I started the Substack. I wrote daily, sometimes twice a day, about the actual experience because it was the only way that I could process it was through some of the best things I think I've written. And it touched other people because I need to communicate. Communication is I'm a bridge, like I told you, and that's what I needed to do in order to truly, what's the word, to digest what was happening to me. I had to do it through my art, which is the written word.
I love it. I love everything about our communication, everything about our interaction, and yeah, and that's what I rave about, and so feel so proud about the shows that we have as producers here, is that you can really find yourself. Oops, we're here on the air for 55 minutes, and it's just a given. It's just kind of part of something very natural, very organic, and I know you know a lot about it. So just first of all to mention. Bridget LeRoy is here with us today, and this is the first day of May, Wednesday morning, year 2024, here with the Hello Hello Show, and we are going to introduce Matt Rayner's art for the entire month of May through the first week of June, and that will be a big deal. The opening will be Friday, 3 to 7, May 9th, May 10th.
May 10th.
And then of course I'm going to mention it every day from now until then and all that. And well, I first of all, I wanted to give you the last word, and also, of course,
Ooh, can you teach
to
my husband to do that?
actually, I should say the last words, the
I
last
just
sentences.
I just really hope this is the very first time that Matt Rayner has an exhibition in East Hampton. He's an amazing guy. He's going to be here next Friday. I hope people come and see his art and meet him and talk to this amazing artist and resourceful person and resource that we have in our community. And thank you so much to both Haim and LTV for hosting a show with Matt. And he would be a great guest. I hope you have him on to talk about his art.
Because I wanted you to indulge me in reading this.
Oh my goodness, I need my reading glasses. Greenhouse below ground, a picturesque scene for the infernal. Gritting teeth for the sake of paradise. Drip, oh drip, you. You, master of science fiction, journey clandestinely now as time has arrived and departed, scrambling precise predictions. You're destined to endure eternally with a joyful countenance buried in the earth, tracing finger trails, teasing the brush in pursuit of recovery. You, descendant of a collapsing sanctuary, break free from damnation and the curse of your thirst. You, the jungle's priest, piercing cries of pain, genuine pain. I bid farewell, this visit brief yet.
Yes, thank you so much for doing that. That's what
Wow.
I kind of like to finish by
With a poem.
taking advantage of the fact that my guests can sometimes they get themselves in trouble with this. No, don't do that to me and all this. But I wanted to say thank you so much for
Thank you.
your presence, for your energy, for your aura,
Thank you.
and now I feel like I got to know you much better. And
Oh, and I do have a website.
yeah,
It's
please.
not really updated, but it's bridgetleroy.com.
Okay.
Matt has one. I think it's matthewrayner.com or matthewraynerphotography.com.
Yes.
If
And
you Google Matthew Rayner,
definitely.
Raynor photography, it'll come up.
Wonderful. And be blessed for all your effort and all your energy in place. And it's so much needed. Of course, it's a no-brainer. We don't even have to think about it twice to understand the importance of it, and that the willingness to cope with our desires is something that I always think about and say I'm so happy that this kind of feeling is manifesting and burning within me, and help and LTV is just a kind of bringing a kind of framing it in a very eloquent way. So we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday and as much as we're here this wonderful morning with our wonderful guest Bridget LeRoy. Wednesday, May 1st, year 2024, here with the Hello Show. My name is Haim Mizrahi. Keep up the good spirits, and we love you, and we appreciate your contribution, and we know you're out there. And please prepare yourself to welcome all these wonderful people that are going to come and take over our neighborhood. Be kind to them, be kind to yourself, and I will say no more. Thank you, Bridget. I really appreciate it.